All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It's the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mo Kelly, and I'm back in for Mark Thompson. I got to tell you, yesterday was a fantastic day. It was a fabulous day. Hearing from you, seeing your comments, helping me as we try to navigate through this crazy world. And it seems like it gets crazier and crazier each and every day. We got to talk about the collapse in the Oval Office yesterday. I'm going to start with that in just a moment. Unbelievable. You think after all these things which are unprecedented and unbelievable, that it can't get more unbelievable? Well, I got more unbelievable for you. We got to talk about Steve Bannon and his admission or belief that if the Democrats regain power after the midterms, some people, including him, are going to prison. Well, I think we would appreciate that, but slow down. Slow down. Don't get ahead of yourselves. And is King Trump, air quotes, is King Trump, has he been dethroned at least in relation to the tariffs? We'll find out soon enough. We'll talk about that. If the SCOTUS rules against them. And wait, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't believe the SCOTUS is going to rule against them. And even if they do, it won't make any difference. We'll talk about that. And I'll probably make you mad when I tell you why. I've been known to make some people mad. But before I make you mad, let me make you glad. Let me introduce my friends, as I said before, the folks who are actually guiding this ship. I am just a passenger on this love boat. Kim, Albert, good morning, good afternoon. How are you both?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm looking at are those martial arts belts behind you?
Yes, I'm a practitioner of the Korean martial art of Hapkido. I've practiced it since I was 15 years old, and I now actually teach. I'm an assistant instructor at Song Hapkido, West Los Angeles, in Culver City. I teach children, adults, women's classes, and it's probably the best decision I've ever made with my life. And it's not about fighting. It's about defending yourself and also learning how to manage your emotions and just exist in this world without fear. That's the short answer.
Love it. Yeah, that's great.
And
also, I'm not going to mess with you in a dark alley.
No. I'm 56 years old. I'm not trying to get in any fights at all anymore.
No. Okay.
But I can protect myself, and that's what I tell people. Sure. And most of self-defense, before I get too far afield, most of self-defense is about thinking about one's safety prior to being in a situation. And safety is not always physical. It could be emotional. There are a lot of components that we incorporate as far as making sure that we're safe and comfortable in this world in which we live. And it's funny, this is a great lead-in, Kim, because part of safety is also preparation for health emergencies. It's about thinking about situations before they happen. And I'll give you a perfect example before we start talking about this collapse in the Oval Office. Unfortunately, I want to say this is maybe 2019 or so. My father, who's no longer with us, but there was a point in which he collapsed. And he collapsed in the kitchen. I just happened to be over at my parents' house at the time. And I knew enough CPR where I immediately jumped in, starting chest compressions. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but there's a point to this. And I was administering chest compressions for about 4 minutes or so, mouth to mouth, all of that, until the paramedics could arrive. I would not wish that on anyone, but it reminded me the things that you learn going back to martial arts. You don't know when you will need to call upon those things. And the preparation prior to that moment is usually the difference. If you've never thought about it, if you've never considered it, then you might freeze up in that moment. You may not know what to do. You may be overcome by fear. And those precious seconds may lead to a much more undesirable result. So using that as a lead-in, thank you, Kim, for getting me there, because it's going to highlight some of my points here. Albert, let's bring up either the video or the still of what happened in the Oval Office, where seemingly an unidentified man fell out and either lost consciousness or was overcome by some medical emergency. Albert, do we have that?
Are you okay? Gordon, you okay? Yeah. Are you okay?
Now, if you saw this still after that, there's a prominent still picture which is floating around social media, which shows President Trump standing almost at attention, my phrase, looking at the camera, almost bewildered that the guy in the background behind him to his left was taking the spotlight or the attention or focus away from him. You saw in the video that President Trump briefly at least looked at the man, but did not offer any help to the man. He did not try to intervene. And if you know anything about these types of high pressure situations, we are all ingrained with the fight or flight or freeze response. Fight, you're going to get engaged. Fright, you're going to freeze up and do nothing. Okay. Or you're going to flee, you're going to leave the situation. Well, someone did flee. And that was RFK Jr.
Wait,
Probably
isn't he supposed to be the chief health guy in the United States? Isn't he supposed to be like, you know, you have a health problem, RFK Jr. knows all the things about the health, right?
He was completely helpless in that moment. And I guess he needed to find a doctor. And maybe that was the right response. But it should tell you how professionally capable he is in an actual medical emergency. That's what happens when you're a lawyer, I guess. But here's something that I want to be serious about. That imagery of Donald Trump standing aside and not intervening and not helping, looking at the camera subsequent to that, I think is a perfect crystallization of this administration. Not actually helping, more concerned with the optics. Not actually getting involved, but more concerned with the interruption and disruption. If you've ever been around someone having a medical emergency, a reasonable person, even if they can't help, is going to be at the ready to help. You might not be the person who's administering medical aid, but at the very minimum, you're probably the person saying, let me get some help, or can I get you some water, or being ready if there is someone who is administering aid may need some secondary help. And from what we've seen from the video, what we've seen from still photography, Donald Trump, that man, was not interested, not able, and not even of the mind to offer any type of assistance. And I think that's also endemic of where we are as a society. A lot of these videos that you see on the street of someone being harmed and no one intervening. You can see it on the subway. You can see it on buses and trains where someone is being accosted and people are more inclined to pull out their phones than they are to get involved. And I get it. In some instances, you don't necessarily want to get involved in something that could bring danger your way. Going back to martial arts, I get it. Not everything should involve you. And I think about it all the time. If I should see someone in distress, am I or am I not going to involve myself? Because police officers will tell you all the time, the most dangerous calls that they go on are domestic disturbances. And so I understand when someone may be reticent as far as a domestic disturbance to involve themselves. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who is obviously having a medical emergency. And Joy said it best. He seemed annoyed by it. Like, how dare you fall out and maybe die in the Oval Office while I am talking about something which is important to me, the president. And here's something else. Why is there this confusion, my word, about who is the individual who had the medical emergency? Don't you know that everyone is on a short list and you like have to sign in and sign out when you go in the Oval Office. There's no unknown person who's in the Oval Office. So the whole idea that they don't know who it is, or it's confusion about who it is, or they were given the wrong name, that's not even possible. I don't understand why we're not even told that. And then that goes back to the administration doesn't want us to tell us the truth about anything. It's hard for me to believe them, because if a person lies about the small things, they'll lie about the big things. They'll lie when the truth is sufficient. They'll lie when the truth will do. Just tell us the damn name. And we get one name, we get a different name. I don't understand the confusion. But speaking of lies, did you see the video from Steve Bannon, the one-time campaign manager, the one-time jailed former campaign manager? Steve Bannon, who's now on the periphery of this administration, had thoughts about what may happen if the Democrats were to retake control of the House. And he's talking about this against the backdrop of the very good night that the Democrats had on Tuesday. Look at this.
And I will tell you right now, as God is my witness, if we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included. They're not going to stop. They're getting more and more and more radical. And we have to counter that. And what do we have to counter it with? We have to counter it with more action, more intense action, more urgency. We're burning daylight. If you look across every aspect of this, we have to codify what President Trump has done by executive order, right? We have to codify it. And people say, well, they're just going to be messing bills. Senate. We got to put aside these structural barriers and get on with it. President Trump today gave to the Senate when they came over for breakfast. Even Lindsey Graham, some of the guys he liked, and some of these institutions, I understand. This is a very tough decision to make. And you're going to see some people in the conservative movement that not in a million years, because I talked to him today, quite frankly, I had Hawley on the show this morning. Josh Hawley, and he's talking about it, and I'm trying to play the institution. Well, they called me up this afternoon and said, let's go through the 10 reasons we need to do it, and these are heavy hitters on what I would call the constitutional, limited government constitutionalist in our movement. And they're about to come out over the next couple of days and make this argument, because it said, look, we have to understand that if we don't take this to the maximum, a maximalist strategy now with a sense of urgency, and in doing this, seize the institutions. If we don't,
let's stop right there.
Now,
let's stop right there. He said a lot, and I think he told on himself. He gave away the game, as some would say. When he says that they need to codify this, he's acknowledging that you can't govern by executive action. That's the first thing. But what he's not telling you is to codify it is to go through the co-equal branches of government. He's not telling you that the only way that they can codify it is to circumnavigate the co-equal branches of government. And that would be illegal. And that is why he believes that he and others are in the crosshairs, if you will, regarding litigation if and when the Democrats take over Congress, or at least the House. And here's something else. Every projection is a confession, because this is what is happening right now with what the Republicans are doing to James Comey, Letitia James, what they want to do with Adam Schiff, what they want to do with Jack Smith. They want all of their political enemies in prison, and they are using unlawful means in which to get it done. But this is where I disagree with Steve Bannon. The Democrats do not do what the Republicans do. The Democrats are not going to forward these BS indictments with no underlying evidence. If Steve Bannon were to go to prison, it's because he's already on record with criminality. There is a paper trail, an evidence trail to what he has been doing and what he plans to do, because he's telling you it's all out in the open. And here's something else. The Democrats do not operate in the same way that the Republicans do when it comes to, quote unquote, lawfare. We saw this with the overwhelming evidence, the classified documents sitting in the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, and Merrick Garland just sat on his hands and twiddled his fingers because he was worried about the optics of prosecuting a former president. The Democrats are not going to do what the Republicans have done. The Republicans are telling you what they are doing and will continue to do, and they say, we better continue to do it because the Democrats might do it. If you follow that silly logic, it's not going to go down like that. Kim, I would love your thoughts on that.
As far as this Bannon thinking he's going to jail, my first thought was, what'd you do wrong? I mean, can we ever get back to that? Like, if you are worried that someone's going to come for you and arrest you and throw you in jail, it has to be, in my mind, because you're worried, you know that you've done something that would mean that you have somehow guilt, or you realize that you've put yourself in a position that the handcuffs are coming.
Do you remember what James Comey said? James Comey said after he was indicted, I welcome this opportunity to exonerate myself.
Yes.
Not that he was afraid of being put in prison for something he had done, regardless of the ill intentions or whatever the questionable motives of this administration. He said, I welcome it because I'm not guilty. I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to hide. And I think a reasonable person, an innocent person, acts accordingly. An innocent person is not going to fear going to prison. Now, they can fear unlawful prosecution because you can fabricate an indictment, but you're not going to fear going to prison unless there's reason to fear going to prison.
Do you remember, and I'm sure you remember, Trump consistently laying the groundwork for things like, oh, the election's rigged before the election even happened, like saying it and kind of like getting people ready for what he's going to do coming up, right? It's almost like Bannon's laying the groundwork for some type of excuse for why he's going to be arrested.
He is
doing
doing that.
That's coming, and if you know that's coming, then what do you are you telling us something bad is going to happen to you? Because I really don't believe that in a normal presidency the Department of Justice is weaponized. I think that's a Trump thing.
Yeah. In a normal period of time in this country. But I'm glad that you said that as well, because it leads me to this next story, and actually is the top story when we talk about the Trump tariffs and what's going on at the Supreme Court, how the SCOTUS is hearing oral arguments. And you've heard me talk with a number of people and talk to you about my feeling that the SCOTUS is more than likely, in my mind, to side with this particular president when it comes to his particular issues. Now, if it's just an issue of constitutionality having to do with ICE or something, then maybe less so. But when it comes to something that Donald Trump, the person, the politician, the president wants, I'm of the mind that the SCOTUS was more likely going to side with him. But if I'm wrong, what does that mean? And the question is, what will happen with the tariffs? And here's what I think is going to happen. Absolutely nothing. And I think this president, in his defiance, in his unconstitutionality, in his illegality, in his criminality, is going to say, F you, SCOTUS, and do whatever he wants to do. Well, Mo, where is that coming from? Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia. When the SCOTUS had handed down the ruling that the federal government had erred and robbed him of due process, what did the president do? What did this administration do? They gave every excuse in the world why they could not return him at that time from Costa Rica. In other words, defied the SCOTUS. So in my mind, this is not going to be any different. Regardless of how the SCOTUS is going to rule, this president is going to find some way to either ignore, disregard, deny, and just move forward with tariffs. Now, it may be by way of some other executive action, forcing this legal process to continue. Will someone have to ask for an injunction or a stay, and then they'll send it up the the court as they usually do, and eventually gets back to the Supreme Court again. In other words, just have it wallow in legal challenges over and over again. This delay tactic, and you never get a final ruling or something where you can hold this administration accountable. So I don't know what the Supreme Court is going to rule regarding Trump's and tariffs. The tea leaves suggest that they're going to rule against this president. That's what they suggest. If you listen to the argumentation, if you listen to the questions which are being asked by the SCOTUS justices, it may give you the indication that, hey, they're on the side of reasonableness. They're on the side of constitutionality. They're going to rule against this president. They're going to provide a check and balance against this president. I don't believe that. But even in the event that they should, I don't believe that this president is actually going to abide by anything that the Supreme Court tells them. And he's basically going to say, and Vilma says it best, basically he's going to dare the Supreme Court to enforce it. What is the enforcement provision for anything that Donald Trump does or does not do? What are you going to have, the FBI, the DOJ? I mean, who exactly is supposed to come down to the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, you're going to have to either do this or we're going to do that? Are you going to subpoena the president? Because this is the same Supreme Court which has already said this guy is basically immune. And I say this guy because I don't believe any of these SCOTUS rulings would apply evenly across all administrations. I don't believe that if Joe Biden were doing the same thing, they would have the same reticence in which to come down hard on this president. So I don't believe that they're going to side against this president. I don't believe that. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt I'm wrong. But in the event that I am wrong, I don't believe it's going to make a damn bit of difference with this president. He's going to do whatever he wants. And that's the sad part about it, because we're supposed to have 3 co-equal branches. We're supposed to be this country of law and order. Wasn't he said that we're a country of laws, and if you don't have any laws, and you don't have a country, or whatever he would always say, and he's the first in line to break a law. He's the first in line to ignore a law. He's the first in line to tell us that, well, he's if you don't know your history, he is Richard Nixon times 20. And Richard Nixon was the one said, if the president does it, then it's not illegal. He is the embodiment of that statement that Richard Nixon made to David Frost so many decades ago. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. So if you want to combine all these things, the collapse in the Oval Office delineates Trump's livid indifference to the suffering of people right within his eyesight, right within his line of sight. And if he doesn't care about the person who might be dying right next to him, how in the hell is he supposed to care about you and your food stamps? How is he in the hell is he supposed to care about you and the cost of groceries? Why in the hell would he care if you're struggling? Why would he care at all about any of your concerns if he's going to put up a gold sign to the Oval Office, if he's going to tout all of his economic personal successes right in your face while you are suffering economically? That, if anything, should tell you that he does not care. And if he does not care in those instances where it's the easiest to care, to turn and offer assistance to someone who may be dying and not worry about the camera. If he can't do it then he never will be able to. And I saw that and I said, what a great opportunity, if you look at it through a political prism, to humanize the president and show him that he cares beyond himself. And he couldn't do it. He could not muster enough care and concern to help someone who was passing out right next to him. And RFK Jr., to his credit, knew that he had nothing to offer. He could not do anything. He could not offer any type of CPR. He cannot offer any kind words. He said, let me get someone who's actually, say it with me, qualified to assist. And I don't want to reduce this to just a political discussion, but in that moment, there were some political opportunities for this president to be able to say that he's human.
Mm-hmm.
There was an opportunity to show that he had some level of empathy, and he couldn't even fake it. And for those who might be watching right now who are ardent supporters of the president, and I know there are some watching because you might be hate watching me or you might be hate watching the show. If you're an ardent supporter of the president, that should be clear to you that a person of innocent mind acts accordingly. You shouldn't have to be prepped to show or demonstrate empathy. It should be a natural inclination inside of you. Someone is in need. Someone needs help. And what would a person of innocent mind do? What would a person who is capable of empathy and sympathy do? You would turn to offer aid. You would not turn to look with disapproval on that person and think that there's somehow, this is my phraseology, somehow interrupting your press conference, stepping on your moment. He revealed once again who he is. And I think it was Michelle Obama who was talking about the power of the Oval Office, the power of the presidency. And she was saying that the presidency only reveals more of who you are. It doesn't change you into something else. It reveals who you are. And I've always said that about money. If you get more money, you're just going to be more of who you are. If you are a giving person, you will turn into a philanthropist. If you're a miserly person, you're going to go in the exact opposite direction. Money and power just make you more of who you are, and it gives you the microphone to broadcast to more people who you are. If you're an a-hole and you have nothing, you're going to be an a-hole when you have everything. And yesterday, that was the moment. That was the opportunity. That was the time where President Trump could have shown to everyone, I care about every single American. And he couldn't even care about someone who politically was aligned with him, was professionally going to help him, and personally in his sphere of influence, and had every reason for him to show favor to this guy who was on the floor, and he couldn't freaking do it. And he never will.
Would you say, Mo, in addition to showing humanity, that and general concern for the welfare of a human being who just hit the floor next to you, that it also showcases how someone acts in an emergency? Because I think there's, as you talked about fight or flight, but different people react in emergencies in different way. We all have the person we know in an emergency. They're the person that stays calm, cool, level-headed. Yeah. It will offer assistance. Will be able to do what needs to be done. I would argue that the person that sits in the presidency should be someone who's good in an emergency, because as they say, when the phone rings in the middle of the night, right? When you have to make snap decisions like that, don't you want the person who can handle an emergency fine and not just stand there and go, what do I do?
It's more than that. It's more than that. Obviously, he probably abrogates his responsibility to make that either split-second decision or to make that thoughtful decision. Mm-hmm. But there's something else. It shows that he can't. If you're incapable of caring beyond yourself, then whatever decision he makes is going to be the wrong one, because it's only going to be with concern for himself. If he's going to talk about a military strike with his advisors and he's incapable of thinking beyond his own self-interest, that means human life does not have any value. And we're seeing that play out. If he's talking to his economic advisors and he's only concerned with the stock market or his crypto scams or some sort of friend in the tech industry that can benefit from an economic decision, if that's the extent of his capability or his empathy, then the multitude of us, the rest of America, has no chance. And he's demonstrated this again and again and again, that he does not care about anything beyond himself. Even his supposed friends, he only cares about them in as much that they can do something for him. You think he cares about Elon Musk? No, he cares only about Elon Musk as much as Elon Musk can do something for him. Peter Thiel, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, it's all the same in as much that they can do something for him. And the moment they can't, go ahead.
Even his bestie, Epstein, right?
Yes.
When he stopped being able to do something for him, dropped him like a hot potato.
There is a theme and pattern here. And if anything, and I say this to his credit in quotation marks, he has been consistent. He is predictably consistent. He, if you know anything about the man, he's always going to act in his own selfish interests, including letting someone die right next to him. Now, thank goodness, for what I understand, the guy whose name I don't even know at this point is okay. But if he died in that moment, I don't think Donald Trump, the person, is capable of even caring. Is that an amalgamation of a person who lacks empathy and is a sociopath? Maybe, possibly, probably. Is that a person who is declining cognitively and can't ascertain the depth of seriousness of a situation like that and rendering aid? Possibly. It could be a sordid combination of all that. All I know is that he is a broken person. This is going back to what you were saying, Kim. The person is most important when we're talking about the president. If you're indecent as a person, if you are incorrigible and corrupt and unlawful, unconstitutional in your behavior as a person, then how in the hell can we trust you with this country? Now, we know that you will trust, we can trust that you'll do whatever's best for you as an individual or your presidential ambitions or your legislative agenda. But if we can't trust that you can somehow marry that to what's best for us as Americans, then God help us all. And I mean exactly that. God help us all. And Cece asked, wish the media would ask Trump, when was the last time you cried? Well, one, the media, it has been distilled down to this body of sycophants, which are not going to ask any real probative questions of this president. And also, I can tell you exactly right now, this president would never admit to crying. Never. And actually, I believe him, because showing emotion to him would be a sign of weakness. Mm-hmm. And to him, the outward display of weakness is antithetical to everything that he supposedly stands for. So if he cries every single day, he would never let you know. I doubt he died over the death of his brother or his sister. I don't think he is capable of showing emotion, because crying says to you that you care. Crying says that something impacts you so emotionally that you are overwhelmed internally, that there is a loss of control, and it displays itself in the form of tears.
He might have cried, Mo, when he lost to Biden.
But he maintains he doesn't. So I don't know if in his mind he has ever accepted that he actually lost that election. And the expression of that has always been anger, contempt, and derision. His insults suggest to me that there was never a point of contrition, reflection, or acknowledgement that he may have lost. And that's why he's still stuck talking about Hillary in 2016 and Biden in 2020 and Obama in 2008, and he can't deal with the here and now. I believe that he was an individual, and I'll leave with this before we go to law and disorder, because I think it flows into that. I believe that he was a person whose growth was stunted. I don't know if he ever became a fully formed adult. He never had to care for himself. He never did his own grocery shopping. We could talk about that, and his inability to understand what groceries actually cost. You know, he says these things that you need to get an ID to buy groceries. Never, with the exception of if you're paying for your groceries with a check. And I don't know who does that anymore other than my mother. God bless her. But you don't need, and most grocery stores don't even accept checks anymore. But the whole idea that you would need an ID, and I know, and I'm bouncing around, but the point is, he is a person who I don't believe was ever fully formed, and then was broken even further along the way. The fact that we have someone who is so emotionally and intellectually ill-fitted to be leader of the free world just confounds me. And that goes back to what I said yesterday. There probably will need to be consequences for us to understand the depth of those decisions that some people made, sending him back to the Oval Office. And with that, let's get into just a little bit of law and disorder. Kim McAllister, take it away.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Here we go. We're talking about the Louvre.
Louvre.
Mm-hmm. You want me to do the story, or you want to do the story?
No, go ahead and do the story. I'll just pot shot around the edges.
We got information now that the big heist at the Louvre, one of the main suspects was a former museum guard and also a social media star, because isn't everyone now these days? The arrest of one of the men suspected of stealing the crown jewels from the Louvre is a minor social media star with a passion for motorbikes who worked as a security guard at that center, according to French media. He's been identified by justice officials as Abdoulaye N. He's 39. He was arrested at his home near Paris, where apparently he faces charges of organized theft and criminal conspiracy. And I think we kind of all called this. I put the story in because everyone knew that this seemed like some kind of an inside job, right?
It had to have been. It had to have been. How are you going to steal anything, a paperclip from the Louvre, and it not be an inside job? And you think you're going to steal these crown jewels and no one inside had anything to do with it? Of course it was an inside job. And I never thought that anyone was going to get away scot-free with this. There's just too many ways in which you could find people's digital footprint, people's presence inside the Louvre, cameras everywhere. In today's world, the whole idea of robbing a bank or robbing a museum, the odds of success are slim and none. So I was not surprised.
The suspects look like supermodels there. Albert's got the mugshots up. And I will say, you would think, Mo, that robbing the Louvre would be difficult. But now we know, and we kind of touched on this yesterday, that the password to the video surveillance system at the Louvre was Louvre, according to an employee. So maybe they need to beef up their security a little bit, because I don't think they're
it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Our next entry comes from Liz Oyer, lawyer Oyer. She's talking about Trump finding shockingly unqualified, disgusting people to pardon. His latest, Cade Cothran, she says, is a prime example. Albert has the video, but Liz says we can't let these people and these corrupt pardons fly under the radar. Here's Liz Oyer.
He is a truly repulsive person. And hey, everybody, this is Cade Cothran. He is a truly repulsive person, and he just received a presidential pardon from Donald Trump. This story is flying under the radar right now, so please help me spread the word. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. Cothran was a rising star in the Tennessee Republican Party. At age 32, he became chief of staff to the Tennessee House Speaker, Glenn Casada. But that didn't last long. Unfortunately for Cawthorn, a whole bunch of his text messages leaked, including texts with his boss, where he talked about harassing, degrading, and preying on women. Some of these women were young interns who worked for him. With one intern, Cawthorn solicited oral sex, asked for nude photos, asked if she was wearing underwear, and talked about orgasms. In another case, this is a different intern, Cawthorn wrote, quote, "I'm going to keep hitting on her just to see what happens. Before long, I'll be that guy." That guy, Cade, is a sexual predator. There were also racist text messages. Cawthorn declared that black people are idiots. And of course, he used the N-word. He also texted about orgies, using cocaine in his office, and, quote, "tripping balls on acid, cocaine, and weed." After Cawthorn was forced to resign, he started a sham company with his former boss. Together, they defrauded other legislators and profited off of taxpayer money. They were both prosecuted for fraud and public corruption. Cawthorn was convicted on 19 counts and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison plus a $25,000 fine. He and Quesada were both scheduled to report to prison later this month, but then Donald Trump intervened and gave them both pardons. Cawthorn claimed he was unfairly persecuted by Biden's DOJ, but in fact, his criminal investigation began during Trump's first presidency and continued into Trump's second presidency. He was sentenced to prison by a Trump-appointed judge. Presidential pardons are supposed to be reserved for people who have repaid their debt to society and who have demonstrated exemplary conduct and character. That's actually written in the Justice Manual. Cade Cawthorn is unqualified for a presidential pardon in every conceivable way. But in Trump's world, character doesn't matter. You can be a racist, you can be a sexual predator, you can be a liar and a cheat. All it takes to get a pardon is kissing the ring or writing a fat check. It's truly disgraceful and disgusting.
It may be. It may be all those things. But that goes back to what I was talking about with the tariffs. I mean, there are no consequences to any of this. Yes, we know the president has the power to pardon, but that presupposes that there are expectations and norms that we follow. This president doesn't follow any norms and does not care about optics. If the person serves his interests, or if he finds some personal kinship with this person, be it racial animus, be it any of these things, sexual deviancy, if he finds some sort of personal kinship with the person, then he is more inclined to pardon him or her or them. And he keeps doing this out in the open. And I say this as a person, I think I said it here on the Mark Thompson show, that I did not support the pardon of Hunter Biden. I understood it, and I can understand why Joe Biden felt that he was mistreated by the Democratic Party, and he wanted to make sure that he protected his remaining son. I understood it. But from a political pardon sense, it was something that I did not agree with. And I don't think he should have done it. But that said, that's one pardon where just about every pardon is for Donald Trump is connected to him in some way. Either he benefits from it, or it's a person who he does business with, or a person who he thinks that it sends a message to his voters that he pardons, that he is in spiritual alignment with. I don't know how to even characterize it. But those have been the pardons. And, it may be lawful for Trump to pardon whomever he wants, but don't urinate down my leg and say that it's raining. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
It's corrupt. I'm sorry, Kim. Go ahead.
No, I love it. Man arrested after groping the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, on the street. Some drunk guy comes up to the president of Mexico and tries to cop a feel, leans in for a kiss, puts his hands on her body. She pushes the guy away, and she's now pressing charges against this guy, saying that it is an assault on all women, that him doing this to her is an assault on all women. The video is all over social media. This guy appears to lean in for a kiss and touch the president's body with his hands. She pushes gently his hands away, has a stiff smile on her face, and she turns to face him, and she appeared to be emphasizing that this is not the first time that she'd suffered this type of harassment, and she said the problem goes far beyond her. Her quote is this: "No man has the right to violate this space. I decided to press charges," she said, "because this is something that I experienced as a woman, but that we are, as women experience in our country." Her reflection is that if she does not report the crime, what condition does this leave Mexican women in? It also
Interesting.
raised some concerns about the security for the president of Mexico.
Well, that was my first
Mhm.
response. I'm thinking about security. And we know that Mexico can be a very violent place for politicians, very violent. The US pales in comparison to Mexico when it comes to violence against elected officials and presidential candidates. I didn't understand, number one, how someone could not only get that close to the Mexican president, but remain that close. The moment that you lean in for the kiss is when you would think someone is going to swoop in. The moment that the Mexican president pushes the guy back, you would think someone's going to swoop in. There shouldn't have been this interchange and this exchange and having the Mexican president file formal charges. The Mexican Secret Service, I don't know the name of the organization, but you would think they would have beat the ish out of this guy and then gone from there.
One would think. Apparently, even if you're the president of Mexico, you're at risk. Here's a guy who maybe shouldn't have brought drugs to the airport. Don't they have drug sniffing dogs at SFO? This 25-year-old guy has been sentenced after 14 pounds of meth were discovered hidden in his luggage at SFO. Yeah, wait a minute. The airport is not necessarily the place for this. This is a guy from Los Angeles sentenced to 2 years in county jail after authorities discover more than 14 pounds of methamphetamines hidden inside a false bottom in his luggage at San Francisco International Airport. He was arrested following a random screening by a Customs and Border Protection officer. He'd flown from LA to San Francisco before trying to board a flight to Sydney, Australia. Apparently, he kind of knew he was busted, pleaded no contest to one felony count of possession of meth for sale, and admitted a weight enhancement of more than 4 kilograms. Police say he was going through SFO at 10 at night, and a customs agent made a random search of his luggage. He was ticketed to go to Sydney, Australia, and when the agent was going through his luggage, he noticed that in 2 pieces of luggage, there was a false bottom. So they pulled it up, of course, found in there 5 heat-sealed packages of methamphetamines weighing more than 14 pounds and carrying an estimated street value of $17,000.
It doesn't surprise me. He just, I guess, wanted to get caught. And I told you about my sister used to work for LAX. I also have other friends at LAX. One is a TSA lead agent. He trains the canines there. And I remember seeing this story. And we had talked about things like this over the years, and it's not, and it may surprise people, it's not impossible to get drugs through airport security. In fact, a lot of travelers travel with marijuana, which is illegal on a federal level. And when you're flying, federal law is the law of the land, regardless if you're flying from California to Colorado, where it's legal in both states, can't take it on an airplane. But more times than not, a lot of people will get drugs through TSA security. But usually TSA will look the other way because they're looking for fools like this one who are bringing in some 14 pounds of meth. But it happens more often than not. And that's part of the reason why you have people trying TSA with this large quantity, because TSA by and large is overwhelmed, especially during the shutdown. Let's not leave that out. You know, someone may be more inclined to try to traffic drugs during the shutdown because there are fewer flights, there are fewer TSA agents, and there are probably fewer eyes looking. I don't believe it was, and I don't know this, but I don't believe it was a completely random search. I don't think TSA got that lucky.
Maybe. I don't know. The guy was arrested in June before the short-staffed situation happened during the shutdown. But who knows? Last story on the docket here, Mo. A Bay Area high school football dad reportedly tackled his son's opponent on the field. What happened? This happened at a high school football game in Atherton, near San Francisco over the weekend, where police were reportedly called to the scene after an assistant coach sparked an explosive incident by attempting to tackle an opposing player. The Palo Alto High School assistant coach is the father. His name is Jason Fung. He's the father of the Vikings quarterback, Justin, and a former athletic director at the high school, and he's now facing disciplinary action. The whole incident on the field caused a significant delay. Police were called to the campus. There's video of the game where you can see, they have it on Max Preps, this high school football site as well. The Palo Alto was behind 28-14, facing a 4th and 4 from the opposing team's 47-yard line. On the play, Justin Fung faced a blitz from his opposing team, the Gators, and ran several yards backward, escaping from one defender who grabbed onto his face mask, drawing a penalty flag. He then scrambled to his left to avoid the oncoming pressure. And as Justin got near the Palo Alto sideline, 2 Gators tackled him, with one Sacred Heart prep player emerging with the ball, holding it up in the air. As he did that, the man who reporters identify as Jason Fung, the father, can be seen walking up to the player and attempting to swipe at the held up football. When he missed on the swipe of the football, apparently stumbled to the ground near the Gators player, but grabbed a hold of the player's leg and then walked for several yards while still holding on to the player's leg. They had to pull him off the player. It was a big mess. Yeah.
I could offer my own stories, and I know people are just getting to know me, but Kim, I've been a youth referee and high school official since the 1980s. I started when I was in college at Georgetown, intramural refereeing, and then after graduating college, is something that I've always done, even to this day. And more recently, I've just limited to high school basketball. And the things that you will see from parents, this surprises me not at all. Let me skip to the end. This does not surprise me. I've had parents come out on the court for a 6th grade basketball game trying to fight me. I've had we've had fights in the stands, and then players on the floor go to join the fight in the stands. High school sports and youth sports now, they are very much representative of the dysfunction of our society, where you will have parents living vicariously through their children, trying to have their children have success that they couldn't have while they were in high school. You have so much money flowing through high school sports in AAU in the recruitment of these athletes going to universities that it has taken on a completely different function, where they're pro sports on a much lower level. And so when you tell me about a guy who walks out on the field and tries to tackle an opposing player, I said, yeah, that's Tuesday, unfortunately, because that's where sports have now gone, even on a high school level. It's dangerous for other players. It's dangerous for the officials. It's dangerous for those in the stands. And unfortunately, it's kind of representative of the society in which we live today. It's unusual, possibly, but not all that unusual, I would say.
My son played Little League for a couple of years, and there was a sign on here's the video of it. Yeah. There was a sign up on the gate, where behind where the parents sit on the fencing, that said, please be respectful of the referees. Please don't yell at the parent volunteers. Please stay in your seat. Please don't yell at the children. They had to put signs up.
No.
Here it is.
Go ahead. Yeah, show the video.
You could see everything kind of unfolding on the side of the fence there, or the side of the field there.
We have announcements at the high school games that I do where they have to tell the people in the stands, do not yell profanities, do not try to come out on to the floor. You would think, like, of course, but no, we have to have that announcement made to inform people that they will be removed if in the event they try to go after a player or an official. Yeah, that's unfortunately very common. Very common.
And that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
I was monitoring the comments, Kim, as you were going through those stories, and there was one consistent theme that, and I'm just paraphrasing, that it starts from the top down. And a lot of the reason that you see certain types of crimes, certain types of behavior can be traceable to what we see going on in Washington. And I don't want to blame Washington for everything, but I do believe that there is an argument to be made that some of the things that, like, for example, some of the attacks on minority communities are a direct correlation to what we see as far as coming out of Washington and the rhetoric. Some of the boldness in which people are approaching those who are Latino is a direct reflection of what's coming out of Washington. The disregard for the law and Constitution, I believe, is a direct reflection of what we see coming out of Washington. The indecency that we see coming out and incivility that we see coming out of Washington plays out in many ways in our day-to-day society. So I think there is a connection we can make as far as the law and disorder that we see on a just personal level in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and you know, in our grocery shopping, that we also see also in Washington, D.C. I don't believe that you can have one without acknowledging the other. That, yes, it does matter what the president would do. It does matter what his administration chooses to do, the policies they choose to support, what they choose to fight for, who they choose to demonize. All these things are connected. You cannot mistake the fact that if you're willing to go around and lie about Haitian immigrants eating pets, how that will impact actual Haitian people. You cannot go around and say that they're bringing, you know, they're rapists and they're killers, they're sending us their worst, and not see how that will play out in general society. You know, you have a lawless administration, you're going to have a more and more lawless society. So I'm tickled when I hear the president talk about we're a country of laws, and if you don't have any laws, you don't have a country. Well, you know, look at the man in the mirror, you know. Anyhow,
very true.
You know, if I don't want to toss it back to you too soon, Kim, but we do need to have a news update before we get into the politics of it all
right,
with Michael Shure.
I have that for you. Ready for some news?
Let's do it.
Okay. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Airlines are canceling hundreds of flights at major airports across the country. The FAA began limiting flight capacity today at the nation's 40 biggest airports, including LAX, SFO, and Oakland, as it deals with a shortage of air traffic controllers during the government shutdown. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the flight reductions will gradually increase to 10% by next week, and he said he's doing this in order to maintain safety.
Let me jump in there.
Please.
I completely reject the premise that this is about safety. There is a safety component, but how they're choosing to address the safety issue is BS. If you know anything about the airline industry or air travel, I've read in a number of sources, like 12% of it is private. None of that is being limited. So there is a way that you can address the safety issue, but it has to be inclusive of that private jet crew, of that, you know, that portion of air travelers who have obviously, again, more money than most, not just those who are flying commercial. And let's look at the airports. It's not just high traffic airports. They are very specific airports in cities and states which coincidentally or not coincidentally, ideologically in opposition to this administration. I don't believe for a second that that is just luck. I don't believe that that's just a coincidence that they are limiting this traffic at very specific airports, which also happen to be in Democratic strongholds, while also ignoring private travel. That's all I'm saying.
The vote in Congress to end the government shutdown today looks bleak. It appears the misery will continue for millions of Americans. Senate Majority Leader John Thune throwing cold water, they say, on reports of optimism from some Republicans and Democrats that a temporary deal could soon be reached. This afternoon, Thune told reporters the wheels came off any bipartisan talks after Democrats' caucus meeting on late Thursday. So it looks like our shutdown continues. President Trump is praising the Prime Minister of Hungary as a, quote, special man. Trump is meeting with Viktor Orban at the White House today, with the Ukraine war and the trade expected to be topics. Orban's visit comes as Trump pushes Hungary to stop buying Russian oil in an effort to end the war in Ukraine.
Orban, you said, right? Viktor Orban, right?
Huh? Yeah, special man.
He couldn't find some other dictator?
No.
That was the only one he could find?
That was it.
Okay, I was just curious. All right, continue, please.
Death toll in that UPS plane crash in Louisville has risen to 13. It comes as the maintenance track records show a crack in the jet's fuel tank needed a permanent repair. That plane had been grounded in San Antonio from September 3rd till October 18th. The jet crashed Tuesday while taking off from the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, causing a massive explosion. The Trump administration is asking for an emergency pause on a federal judge's order to fully fund SNAP benefits for November. Doesn't want to feed the poor people, Mo. The judge ordered the White House to pay out the benefits by today and said people have gone without for too long. The Trump administration had planned to partially fund food stamps, the program for 42 million Americans. The judge ruled the government must now draw from additional USDA funds so states can deliver full SNAP benefits.
Kim, are you telling me that this administration, they were given a directive by a federal judge and this administration did not fully comply? Is that what you're telling me?
I believe that's what I'm saying to you, Mo. Yeah.
So if in the event the SCOTUS should rule against the president and tariffs, why would it be any different? I just wanted to, circle back to that. That's all. Just want to put that out there.
Cornell University has struck a deal with the Trump administration to restore federal funding. The New York University, one of several Ivy League institutions that the White House had accused of anti-Semitism and admissions discrimination. The deal will reportedly restore hundreds of millions in federal funding. In return, Cornell is expected to pay a $30 million fine and invest millions more in its agriculture and farming programs. President Trump, speaking of farming programs, being challenged on his claim that a Thanksgiving meal purchased at Walmart is cheaper this year than it was last year. And he's said this a couple times now, touting his efforts toward affordability using Walmart's advertised price of under $40, down from last year's price of about $55. On Friday at the White House, noting that a reporter noted that Walmart is putting less food in its item than in last year, which is accounting for the difference in price.
But we all know the president has never been shopping in his life. Has never bought. No, wait. The president has never been shopping in his life, and the president has never shopped for groceries in his life, and the president has never shopped for groceries from Walmart in his life.
As if. Trump accused the reporter of fake news and immediately asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to speak to the press about his efforts to make things affordable to Americans. He says he doesn't want to talk about affordability. It's fine. Everything's fine. Representative Elise Stefanik is running for governor of New York. The Republican congresswoman made it official today in a campaign video posted on social media. A close ally of President Trump, Stefanik called Kathy Hochul the worst governor in America, vowed to tackle affordability while standing with law enforcement, saying she's running.
Can I jump in there? And I think that's a very, very important race to watch. Elise Stefanik has long been considered a darling of the Republican Party. And she's been a chameleon as far as whether she's actually MAGA or not. I don't believe that she is. I think she's been using the MAGA base to forward her political aspirations. I think she's more towards a conventional Republican, but can masquerade for as long as she needs to. The reason I think that this governor's race is important is it will signify whether big picture, the politics of New York are willing to disregard all things MAGA. All things MAGA. It's one thing you talk about New York City. It's another thing when you talk about New York State. And the way that you want to use California as a indication of what may be going on in the rest of the country as far as progressive politics, I would look at that governor's race as another indicator as far as whether MAGA is increasing in strength, which I believe it is not, or whether it is waning in its popularity and strength. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was important to indicate that's something you should watch. You should watch. And if Elise Stefanik, one of the darlings of the right, should be unable to get any traction in New York and goes down, that ought to tell you that MAGA is closer to the end than it is the beginning.
Now, this is news and commentary. You jump in anytime you want to. The New York Mets legend Darryl Strawberry being pardoned by President Trump. The White House confirms the pardon is for the slugger's guilty plea to a federal tax fraud charge in 1995. Strawberry got 3 years probation and repaid $350,000 in back taxes. He cannot be pardoned for his previous drug crimes, which were brought in state court. Strawberry has a long-standing friendship with Trump dating back to the 1980s.
Let me jump in there because, dating back to the 1980s, what we were talking about, he's kind of stuck in the 80s. Darryl Strawberry was a star, at the biggest star as a member of the New York Mets when the 1980s. And we've already talked about this. He will pardon his friends. And this is something that I particularly bristle about, because when it comes to the pardoning of African Americans, it's usually an athlete, it's usually a rapper, or someone who has some degree of personal affinity, and they fit in this box of acceptable African Americans. Donald Trump, beyond the people that he likes, he perceives Black people as just entertainers and sports heroes. One of the first pardons he did was of the late Jack Johnson. Why? Diddy is walking around in prison, allegedly, according to published reports, saying that Trump is going to pardon him at the first of the year. I actually believe him because, one, there's a rapport there, and Trump and his association with hip hop, which I've talked about, and then also his perception of Black people and their value having to be connected to entertainers or sports figures. It all fits. So, yes, I'm not surprised that he pardoned Darryl Strawberry, New York icon, New York sports icon, and he's going to also pardon Diddy, New York icon, New York hip hop icon. So yeah, it all makes sense.
Speaking of Trump and sports, he will be attending Sunday's game between the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. The Commanders say they are honored to welcome the president to help celebrate veterans and active duty service members. Trump will reportedly sit with the Commanders owner, Josh Harris, in his private box because, of course, the president has attended several high-profile sports events since returning to the White House, including the Super Bowl, the Daytona 500, and UFC fights. The kickoff from Landover, Maryland for Sunday's game is set for 4:25 p.m. Eastern, in case you want to watch all that pomp and circumstance there.
Oh, I do. I do. I love to see the crowd reactions. And it also, when I was doing my show on KFI, I talked about this a lot. For all the people who allegedly, supposedly want politics out of their sports are the same people who have no problem with Donald Trump weighing in on sports, appearing at sports events, and then using those interactions to foment all of his issues with the sports. He's always had plenty to say about the NFL. And if you don't know his history, going back to the 1980s again, he wanted to buy an NFL franchise. The NFL told him no. And he's always had this axe to grind regarding the NFL. And I think he takes great delight in being able to show up to NFL events like the Super Bowl and then having to be catered to by the NFL because the NFL wants to stay in his good graces. But, we don't want politics in sports except when the president inserts himself in sports time and time again. And that's saying nothing of this upcoming UFC event, which is supposed to be on the White House lawn, and they're going to have the fighters walk out allegedly from the Oval Office itself. Just had to put that in there.
Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez fired by Fox Sports. According to multiple reports, Sanchez was let go after he was involved in a fight in Indianapolis where he was set to call a game in early October that apparently almost killed him. Sanchez was arrested in a hospital bed after allegedly attacking a delivery driver, which led to the man stabbing Sanchez in self-defense. The Farmer's Almanac is ending its 208-year run with the 2026 edition. All good things come to an end, Mo. The Almanac, known for its long-term weather predictions, gardening guides, fishing, and moon phases. What will we do without it? In a statement, the editor the editor emeritus said they are incredibly proud of the legacy they leave behind, and they are filled with gratitude. The Farmer's Almanac was first published in 1818. In 2026, it's the last one.
I have to ask you, and I want to ask Albert as well, because we're different generations. I had a few almanacs growing up, and I also had a Funk and Wagnalls encyclopedia. In school, we had Encyclopedia Britannica.
Sure.
But I remember, and I was one of those nerds who actually read the dictionary and read the thesaurus. I got enjoyment out of that. And I don't say that as a boast. I'm just saying that I was a nerd. That was stuff I did.
Sure.
And so I read my encyclopedia from cover to cover. That had maybe 12 volumes, but this over the course of maybe 12, 13 years or so. It never changed. And to someone who doesn't remember a world without internet, they didn't understand the importance and value of an almanac or an encyclopedia for old folks like me. Now, I can't speak to Albert's generation. Albert's a little bit younger than me, but Albert, did you grow up using an almanac or an encyclopedia?
We did. I'm a millennial. We're the generation as the internet started coming out. We were that one, but prior to that, we didn't have anything. So we did use that for a lot of our schoolwork, a lot of everything we reference to. Now you could just hit Google, or I guess ChatGPT for all these students nowadays.
You've never flipped the pages, the static pages of an encyclopedia, or at least you didn't seek that out. It's amazing to me. I can't imagine that world. I would rather go to Wikipedia before I went to ChatGPT, and Wikipedia is suspect as hell.
I don't think my kids have ever seen an encyclopedia. No. I know. I've been remiss. Lastly, the Northern Lights may be visible overnight in as many as 22 states, thanks to an arriving geomagnetic storm caused by a powerful solar flare. That means millions stand a good chance of catching a glimpse of the Aurora Borealis or Northern Lights. Light show always unpredictable, but a cloud-free sky and minimal light pollution can increase your odds of seeing them before or sometimes even after sunrise. So, not California, but it's all right.
I've never seen it. I've never seen the Northern Lights. I've never been in that portion of the country or the world to see them.
No, me neither. We had them in, gosh, I want to say 6 months ago, maybe about, in California, in the Bay Area. You could see them over the Golden Gate Bridge, but I didn't see anything. I just saw pictures of it after the fact. So this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It is truly the most wonderful product you will ever taste. If you're a coffee lover, you'll love the coffee. I love the tea. I have my Moroccan mint iced tea today. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. Check out the tasting notes on the website. You'll see exactly what you may like right there on the website. And if you end up with anything in your cart, whether it's a coffee cup, a t-shirt, coffee, tea, what have you, anything is eligible for the super secret Mark Thompson Show discount. The code is MarkT at checkout. That'll save you 10% off. Please use it with our compliments, MarkT at checkout for 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have this itching that I need scratched. I need to talk a little bit more about politics, the stories of the week. Normally, we are joined on Fridays by the inimitable Michael Shure, where I don't know if he's been able to reconnect. We had some technical issues. Albert, was he able to reconnect? Michael Shure, there he is.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I was having a lot of problems getting in today, but
it could be worse. We could have had you drive to the studio.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I am outstanding. It is great to talk to you. I've had the opportunity to talk alongside you with Mark. So I look at this as an opportunity to kind of guide the conversation. But I wanted to start with what you thought was the biggest takeaway from Tuesday and the wins by the Democrats.
You know, I'm sort of a curmudgeon about looking at these things as bellwethers or this means anything massive. I think when you look at the biggest takeaway, to me, the biggest takeaways, which is your question, are in 3 counties in New Jersey where Hispanic voters came out in big numbers for Mikey Sherrill in that governor's race, and it really undid a lot of the progress that Trump had created in those counties. I think it was Cumberland, Passaic, and one other, maybe Hudson. And I think that to me, it's not the sexiest thing about Tuesday, but it's the fact that resonates most in terms of what it may portend next year and beyond. And it shows that Democrats have an opportunity. It shows that the immigration issue is one that is, whether, you know, I've been around a lot of Hispanic voters for a long time, and they never tell me, or rarely do they tell me, that immigration is their biggest issue. But human rights and civil rights are. And I think when you see that violation of those civil rights that's going on with ICE right now, I think a lot of people are saying, hey, you know what, that's the truth. That is why we don't support this administration. So it isn't so much about immigration policy, it's how it's being enacted in terms of deportation. So, well, again, not sexy, but I do think it was important. I think also, the Mamdani election in New York, exciting in that money didn't play as big a role. He was outspent and he won. Andrew Cuomo had a lot of money to spend, as he would, having been governor and been sort of a part of a dynastic New York political family. And the money didn't win. And I think that's what a lot of these grassroots campaigns are showing now in America, is that money, while important, is not everything. Money used to be how you get your ad buys and your yard signs. And now people communicate their campaigns in very different ways to younger audiences. And so I think that was what is pretty telling to me about the Mamdani victory in New York.
Let me stay with Mamdani, because I had a slightly different take. I don't think it was a bellwether. I don't think it was an indicator of the larger political trends. But I do think if we look at how and why he won, yes, money was not an issue, but it leads me to my point. I believe that Republicans, by and large, mismessaged that election in the sense of they may have lost Latinos by the policies that they've enacted regarding ICE. I believe that they also alienated another minority group, as far as Muslims, Arabs, as far as how they tried to negatively portray Mamdani. And I think that is going to have consequences if they continue down that messaging path. And it seems like that they are. If they continue down that messaging path, they will have more of those issues come the midterms. Did you see anything, or did you extract anything as far as how Republicans tried to confront Mamdani?
Yeah, I mean, in predictable ways, right? I mean, what they're very good at, Republicans, is fear mongering. They're very good at labeling, and they're very good at, once that label is on someone, hammering it home until it is all you can hear. Now, what did they do? They changed their tune. Good, we're glad he won, and now we're going to show you how a socialist can screw up a city, and how socialism is not the way to go. You knew that's where they were going to go when this happened. I do think, though, that there's something there. And in terms of when you are, what the Republicans had a very good time doing, and a successful time doing, was saying that the Democratic Party was more interested in trans athletes than they were in the price of eggs, right? Of course, that's not true. And of course, that isn't how anybody who ran for office in 2024 put forward their platforms, et cetera. Yet, it became part of the narrative. And so that's what they're doing in New York. And I think Democrats on the national stage, and now I was probably disappointed that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer never went in and endorsed in the same way that Governor Hochul did in New York, didn't endorse Mamdani. They are national figures. They are trying to win back the Senate and the House. And their take is, and the take that is the prevailing wisdom until it's proven wrong, is that if you go and you hug somebody who is being portrayed as a lightning rod, whether correctly or incorrectly, and I think incorrectly here, as we both said, I think that we can see the strategy out of the Mamdani race that the Democrats are going to take in 26 anyway, which is to distance themselves even from the rumors and the innuendo about candidates and their party, to say, no, we're for the working class. We're now fighting for health care. We're keeping the shutdown going because we're fighting for health care. That's the direction they're going. They may win, they may lose, but that's a decision that they have made. So that's where I see what you're saying about Mamdani and the Republicans and all of that as interesting. But I think that the way Republicans have played the political game has worked for them in so many ways that they're not going to vary from that until it stops working.
You make a great point, Michael Shure, as you talk about the embracing or distancing from a political figure who might be a lightning rod. And I wonder, given that you said that, whether any of those internal discussions are being had with rank and file Republicans or congressional or senatorial Republicans, given what Donald Trump, going back to what you were saying about ICE and their policies. The president said in the recent 60 Minutes interview that he thought that the ICE raids haven't gone far enough. Shouldn't Tuesday have given, if not Donald Trump, Republicans more generally, some pause about how these ICE raids could play out, not just among Latino voters, but voters more generally, given that the president is going to double and triple down, and heretofore Republicans have been loath to have any daylight in between. Are Republicans possibly reconsidering breaking with the president on some of his policies?
Yeah, that's absolutely that's the case. I mean, Republicans are going to look at what happened. I think the Republican game plan has always been to woo independents with wedge issues. It's been that way certainly for all of the 2000s, right? And by and large, that stuff tends to work, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's gays in the military, whether it is it's immigration. These scare tactics on immigration have been a go-to for them. So what I do see out of this is, first of all, it's in combination with the fact that whether he believes it or not, Donald Trump is going to be a lame duck president pretty soon. And there are a lot of very, very ambitious Republicans who want that job, not just J.D. Vance and not some gadflies. There are people in the House and in the Senate who want that job. Only one person will get that job and one person will get that nomination. But they're going to have to carve out a path at some point that differs from what the administration's doing. The administration believes that their policy, their ICE going into blue cities, is helping them with rural voters and will help them in 2026. I think this Tuesday bore out a little bit when you look at the numbers. And again, they're not all in. So the polling that we see the day after a race is not really fair. But when you see the way independents in Virginia and the way independents in New Jersey behaved, and even exceeding what they had expected in Pennsylvania and some Supreme Court races there, they're finding that's really not working. There was Jacob Frey was reelected as mayor of Minneapolis, and they thought that a lot of Minneapolis is a pretty blue city and Minnesota is pretty much a blue state, but they thought that a lot of the policies that were going on in other cities would help independent voters topple a mayor in Minneapolis. It was a long shot, but it didn't happen. And so these sorts of things are the things you can take away and say, yeah, you're right, Mo. I mean, the Republicans are going to rethink some of their policies, but you can only rethink them so much. Right now, there's nothing to legislate because Congress is out, and there's a president who is kind of governing by fiat at this point. And so we'll have to see how it works into the different races that are going on. Democrats are putting together a really good field of candidates. Not to say they're going to win the Senate, but a much better field of candidates for the Senate with more opportunities than people thought even a year ago that they would have. And those incumbent senators are going to have to be able, I'm thinking of people like Susan Collins. I'm thinking in Ohio. There are definitely going to be some races that are going to be in play that weren't in play because of these policies.
Let's talk about the politics of the shutdown. The president has been calling Republican leaders together and advocating for the nuclear option to end the filibuster so they can conceivably end the shutdown. From what I know, the people that I've talked to, that is not the preferred strategy going forward by the rank and file Republicans. What are you hearing and what do you expect?
Yeah, I spoke, I guess, Tuesday night with a Republican Senate staffer and was asking her about whether or not she thought this was going to change anything. And, that was before the president came out and blamed the shutdown for these losses. And so the Democrats took a different tack. Oh, the president thinks that the shutdown hurt Republicans. Well, we're not going to open this government back up if that's the case. And the president wants to say that we could open the government back up if we didn't have this filibuster. The filibuster is something the Senate has used for a long time. But the truth is, you need 15 Republicans. And this staffer told me that there just aren't 15 Republican senators that are going to jump ship in order to override that law and to put the nuclear option in. There's certainly some senators who will say that they are for ending the filibuster, but I think John Thune, who's the Senate Majority Leader, doesn't want to kowtow, or I should say, he does want to kowtow to the president. He doesn't want to seem weak. Because when you are a weak leader to a strong White House, you lose a lot of your currency on Capitol Hill. So I don't see that changing. I think that there's going to be some kind of a budget deal that some moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans will strike in the Senate, which will not make every Democrat happy on Obamacare subsidies. But I think that will be the way out of this. But the Democrats are no longer in a hurry, especially with a president who thinks that the shutdown was what caused election losses. So, Democrats are going to say, bring it on.
Civics aside, not talking about the Senate, but the House, Speaker Mike Johnson seemingly has been one of the more vocal voices that we've been hearing from regarding the shutdown, even though he does not play a direct role in ending the shutdown. You made the remark about how weak leadership may be perceived in all of this. How would you characterize Mike Johnson as far as not swearing in Adelita Grijalva, not actually being a speaker and actively involved in and playing a more forceful role in the shutdown? Civics aside.
It's sort of the power of the gavel, right? I mean, I think that he feels that these daily press conferences he's having, where he's casting blame, he's calling it a Schumer shutdown, he's saying that the Democrats in the House are not doing enough, and that he is prevented somehow from swearing in Grijalva in Arizona. The swearing in of Grijalva should have happened. They're now filing suit for it. In practical sense, until the government's back open, none of the things that Grijalva wants to do would be able to be done because the House wouldn't be in session. They would have a pro forma session to swear her in, but it wouldn't change the things that people want to see change. Certainly, it wouldn't embolden a discharge petition until they reopen the House. But I think he is trying to be that strong leader for his caucus. He has a divided caucus, but in the meantime, he's seeing sort of the moderation of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is using the time off. And a lot of these members are using the time off to get on the airwaves and talk about other things. So they're not getting an agenda completed. And, Johnson is going to be judged on that. But congressional popularity will be absolutely low. And generally speaking, historically speaking, as you know, Mo, that the party in power is the one that always ends up with blame for these shutdowns. And the longer it goes, the more, I was cynical about what its impact will be and who cares about it when next November. But the longer this goes and the more there's damage and the more someone remembers a canceled Thanksgiving flight, the more that's going to matter to Americans. And if Republicans are the ones that are going to take the blame, and the president is saying that caused election losses, then I think the Republicans are going to have to figure a way out of this, and Johnson's going to have to be instrumental.
Before I let you go, I want to keep it right there, talking about the shutdown and Speaker Johnson specifically. I don't know if you saw the video of Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan, who interrupted Johnson when he was trying to have one of these shutdown press conferences. And I don't think it went well for Congresswoman Houlihan, but I want to show you the video and then get your thoughts on the other side, what you thought of it.
Yeah.
Part of the American people.
Yes, ma'am. And you should respect free speech. What's the question? What's the question?
Respect free speech.
What's the question?
President Trump
last night suggested that the government shutdown was in part to blame.
I can't hear you because we have someone who doesn't respect the rights of their colleagues.
You have an obligation not just to
I'd love to talk with you. Wait. I'd love to talk with you. Come to my office, okay?
You have an obligation to call the leadership of both parties and bring us together and solve this problem together.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about it. I've been doing that. We did that before the shutdown began. We went to the White House. We went and sat in front of the Resolute desk. We brought Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer in, and we had a discussion. The president said, please don't shut the government down. It would cause all this pain to the American people. This has never happened before. It's a clean, nonpartisan CR that every Democrat, including you, voted no on September 19th. You voted to shut down the government. You voted to stop SNAP benefits. You voted to not pay the troops, not pay TSA, Border Patrol. You may regret it now, but that's your vote, and it's on the record. So the president had us in, and they didn't want to have a dialogue or debate. They thumbed their nose in it at him.
Okay, you get the idea there. This is my point. I want to see whether you agree or disagree with me. I'm not a fan of peanut gallery engagement. If you're trying to engage someone who has a microphone, you're going to lose. And I think it was a missed. I don't think it was a missed opportunity. I thought it was a reckless use of that moment to try to bring light to what you're saying, most of which was unintelligible, and it makes the Democrats, I think, look like they're just engaging in peanut gallery politics, throwing rocks on the periphery. What say you?
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I sort of see, these are the struggles of being in the minority when the House is in session. So when the House is out of session and these things are happening, and it's not official business, decorum isn't to me as important as it would be were on the House floor. And so that's kind of my take. I don't know that I agree with you. I don't know how effective it was, but I do understand the frustrations of Americans who feel that their Democratic representatives, and probably their Republican representatives, but I know Democrats who are sort of voiceless in the Capitol right now, want to see some pushback. And so to that end, I think this was pushback. I don't think that there are very many people walking around saying, did you see, Houlihan of Pennsylvania and what she did? But I get what you're saying, but I think that the rules are different when it's happening outdoors, when Congress isn't even in session. And there's a frustrated American populace right now that wants to see things, wants to get on their planes for Thanksgiving, wants to see their SNAP benefits, wants to see, want to go to national parks, what have you. And they see this guy in charge saying, no, 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 no. It's not all the speaker, but a lot of it is. And I think also he did misrepresent that continuing resolution vote. It all would have died in the Senate anyway. There were Republicans who didn't support it in the Senate anyway.
Yeah, and I think we agree on that. The misrepresentation, I think, is emboldened by the fact you got a microphone and you can overtalk someone. But I accept your point. But before I let you go, I wanted to end with this one thought about the shutdown. I said when Mark was hosting, he asked me how long I thought the shutdown would go. And I said it was pretty much open-ended because both sides, at least beginning, they wanted this fight, and this fight is continuing because both sides, for various and sundry reasons, feel that they have an upper hand as far as messaging or leverage. I think that it's going to go through at least the Thanksgiving holidays, which would be disastrous for our economy, disastrous for our federal government, disastrous on all sorts of levels leading into the holidays. Do you see any end in sight given what has and has not been happening?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Americans asleep in Logan Airport because their flight going west was canceled or not scheduled over the Thanksgiving holiday, or having to be shepherded onto buses in big traffic because people aren't flying. That's going to affect people and upset people. I think, my feeling is that these things are unpredictable. I think in a frustrating way, moderates in both parties are usually the ones who figure the way out of these shutdowns and these impasses. What I do think, though, in this case is the Democrats have to do a better job, certainly, messaging that they are doing this for healthcare benefits. I don't think enough people are in touch with what's going on. With the Democratic role here is, if we don't get these Obamacare subsidies increased and extended, we're not going to be able to sustain healthcare in America. And we are here so the Republicans don't cut it. If they're able to get that message out in a more succinct way, I think that it will help the Democrats, and they're not in any hurry. I also do think that what the president said the other day, I said it earlier, blaming the shutdown for the losses, which I don't think is true, by the way, but I don't think it's correct, but he did say that. Democrats are like, oh, that's what you think, then we're going to give you more of the same. And it's your party that's going to have to concede on some of these issues if you want to open the government back up, which he clearly now does want to do, even at his own peril. I think that there is some delight that the government shut down because he's been able to travel, he's been able to do foreign policy, and he's been able to avoid that Jeffrey Epstein discharge petition, which he wants nothing to do with.
Michael Shure, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's nice to be able to talk to you in this format on the Mark Thompson Show. And I'll be in next Friday, so hopefully you'll be able to join me then as well.
Will do. All right. See you then.
Michael Shure, there he goes.
Bye, guys.
It's the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mo Kelly, in for Mark not only today, but the rest of the week. And I was told yesterday, they were adamant. They were clear. They were serious. They said, Mo, do not mess up my personal ownership. Do not mess up my Friday Fabulous Florida. So I'll do the best I can. Here we go. Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
I got to tell you, my computer was working just wonderfully.
Isn't that always the way, Mo?
Just like that.
Just like that. Well, how about I'll read the stories then?
I'll start with the title, and then my ad blocker is getting in the way. But a Florida woman has faked a home invasion and given police an AI photo of the alleged attacker.
Oh, no, she didn't. This happened in St. Petersburg. This woman facing charges after reporting to police that she was attacked and then sharing an AI-generated image of the suspect. It started as a frightening 911 call, Mo. It turned out to be completely fake. St. Petersburg police. Oh, and there she is. We usually grade the based on whatever your criteria
it's a
is.
wild idea, but it just might work.
Does she look the part? Does she look pathetic? Is she attractive? Is she whatever criteria you want to use? Usually we rate the mugshot. I'm going to give her a 6.5. St. Petersburg police say a woman who claimed a stranger broke into her apartment and attacked her made up the whole story, even created a fake suspect image with AI.
No, she did not.
32-year-old Brooke Scheinault is her name. The victim, now suspect in this case, had shown proof of images of a person that she didn't know and had entered her home forcibly and possibly injured her getting inside her house. Investigators say forensic teams and a canine unit came out, searched the area, found no suspect. A few hours later, the woman's boyfriend called police back saying she hadn't told them everything. When officers returned, Brooke claimed she had also been sexually assaulted. That's when a detective was called to the scene and immediately became suspicious of the picture that Brooke provided. The detective immediately saw the proof or the evidence she provided and immediately knew this was part of a TikTok trend that they are seeing online. According to police, investigators later found the AI generated image saved in the woman's deleted files was created days before she ever even called 911. They say this is a waste of resources. They've had officers go out to this home twice in one day, and police say creating fake pictures like the one used isn't difficult, just takes a few minutes with AI software. And even though they suspect it is false, they were going to handle it as if they believed it was a real case, going through the process and the evidence until they have absolute proof that it is not real. This woman,
image is hideous.
yes, it is. The woman is now charged with 2 misdemeanors and is currently out on bond.
You would think with the advent of AI that crime would get more sophisticated, not less sophisticated. you would think, but I guess not.
And AI really isn't even that good yet. You could kind of tell AI images and videos still have this kind of weird.
You
feel
can
to
tell.
them.
I can tell.
Yeah.
But as I go around, let's say if you bump around Facebook, you'll see all these fake stories which are being posted, these videos which are obviously AI, and people, what I think are people, are all in believing what they see.
No.
I can understand the belief that people could be fooled by AI because so many people are fooled by AI. This woman is not very intelligent, but I can understand the thinking that she could fool some people. Maybe not law enforcement, but could fool some people.
Don't you think AI images have a kind of a weird quality to them? Kind of
Yes,
like
they're a little too pristine usually.
Yeah, little too perfect, little sheen to them.
Yes.
Something that makes you think that's AI. You know it right off the bat when you see it.
You should, but not everybody does. Next story, Florida man, of course, has opened fire after a bar argument about how many eggs a chicken can lay, because we've all thought about this. A man in Florida walked into this bar, got into this heated argument, and cops in Port St. Lucie say 44-year-old Peter Riera fired shots Tuesday morning outside Harper's Pub, and police body camera footage that you can see right now shows Riera being taken into custody. Police say Riera got into an argument with 3 people outside the pub who claimed were trying to con him. Riera does raise chickens, and the dispute was about how many eggs chickens can lay. Because that is
in a day, in a week, in a lifetime. What?
For some reason, the argument got heated, and Riera allegedly fired 4 shots from a .45 caliber Glock.
Ooh, this got serious fast.
Oh, anytime you're talking about gunshots, cops say Riera was paranoid and thought the folks he was arguing with were out to get him, which is the definition of paranoia.
Yep.
And everyone, of course, allegedly was drinking, but thank goodness no one was injured. He was a bad shot or just shot up into the air.
I've been willing to bet my lunch there's alcohol involved, Albert. Absolutely.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
So here's the question for everyone. How many eggs can a chicken lay? We'll say, what, in a day?
4? I have no idea. And I was in 4-H. I have no idea.
I don't know. And what a question. Isn't it different for every chicken?
It probably is. But it's not worth pulling a gun on.
Is there even an answer?
It's not worth that serious.
All right.
Anyhow, did we get the mugshot of Riera up? I didn't see.
No, just the body cam.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Get this. An otter has helped Florida deputies in their search and rescue missions by finding missing people underwater.
An otter? That's cool.
I guess when it comes to finding dead people, I usually think about canine units, but I guess Splash, the otter, has now taken that over. Splash has the unique ability to smell underwater by shooting air bubbles that trap scents, allowing him to find things such as human remains. Ooh. The fact that there's so many bodies underwater should be off-putting. But law enforcement across the state took part in the training with Splash. And I guess they're showing how they train Splash. I guess it's like a cadaver dog just in the water.
Yeah, absolutely. I did
But-
not know that otters possess that ability.
I didn't know that there are that many bodies floating in Florida marshes, but I guess so.
People swimming with the
guess so.
fishes, Mo. Mm-hmm.
Splash is possibly the only known cadaver otter in the world. According to news reports, Splash has participated in over 20 missions so far, finding 4 bodies.
Well done, Splash. That's cool. Love it.
Yeah. All right. So those are our 3 stories.
Mm-hmm.
I guess at this point we have to have a vote.
Yep, we do. You want to ask for the favorites?
Yeah. Let's see which favorite. Are we going to ask the chat or just you guys?
We'll start with us and then we'll go to the chat.
Okay. Kim, your favorite story.
My favorite, I'm going to say, is going to be although I do like the how many chickens story, I'm going to go with the AI brain power lady who thought that she could fool the police with an AI picture of a suspect.
That surprises me not at all. Not at all. Albert, how about you?
I like the otter story. It's I thought that was an AI story first, and then I saw CBS News posted it, so it wasn't fake. So very cool story, cadaver otter.
I gotta say before we go to the chat, my favorite is the chicken.
Yeah.
Gunplay. I can understand people going to the bar fighting over a woman, fighting over politics, but not fighting over chickens and how many eggs they can lay. That's new even for Florida. AI and Florida and faking crimes, that seems very Florida-esque. I can get that. I can mentally wrap my head around it. I can't mentally wrap my head around pulling out a gun and opening fire over how many eggs a chicken could lay. That's me. And looking at the chat, it looks like the otter seems to be coming in first. It's just anecdotal, but I'm just feeling like the otter is the most impressive story coming out of Florida.
Albert usually does a poll of the audience. What do you got, Albert?
I got a lot on my plate today. No poll, but yes,
No
just
poll,
off the chat, otter, and which is disappointing because I thought AI was a wild idea, but
otter, people loving the otter.
Like the
otter
AI.
since no gators. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever spent any time in Florida before we go to Michael Snyder? Have you ever spent any time, extended time?
Just a couple of days on the way to a cruise.
It is another world in many ways.
Yeah.
And when you spend time in Florida, you don't know that the strange stories are very much emblematic of Florida. That's all I can say. It's weird until you go to Florida and spend some time there.
And that is Friday Fabulous Florida.
And it's that time.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
I know I'm still new to this. I didn't mean to step on that sounder, that exit sounder, but it's that time of the show where he comes and goes on a rainbow. It's always good to hear from Michael Snyder. Michael, thank you for coming in to the Mark Thompson Show.
Well, greetings to Mr. Mo Kelly. As I said last week, I'm ready for Les Thompson and Mo Kelly. Anyway, of course, we miss Mark. If he's listening, try not to be on any fishing boats while you're down in Columbia, pal. You know, those waters are a little treacherous. And Mo, I want to express my thanks for running the clip of the Oval Office collapse. I mean, RFK Jr. left that room so fast, I thought he was being chased by Wile E. Coyote. I mean, all that was missing was a beep beep. I really could not believe what I was seeing, honestly. So, Halloween in LA was a party, and Thanksgiving is on the way, which means Christmas decorations were up as soon as the last jack-o'-lantern was smashed. And it also means that the pumpkin spice plague has infected Trader Joe's. In a recent poll taken to rate the current worst TJ's pumpkin spice products, here are the top losers: pumpkin spice almond beverage, pumpkin spice power bars, pumpkin waffles, mini spicy pumpkin samosas and
What?
the pumpkin spice JoJo's cookies. Oh my God. Speaking of scary, what do you say? It's time to review a slew of new movies. Yeah, you ready?
Yep.
All right. Let's start with a bang and a banger. Predator Badlands. So combining the intellectual property elements of Alien and Predator must have been a smart, expedient commercial move for 20th century movies when it was Fox. They owned both franchises and released the less than accomplished Alien versus Predator movie in 2004. I mean, I shrugged at it. I thought, oh, that's what a big studio would do to generate income. But director and screenwriter Dan Trachtenberg cleverly incorporates the evil Earth conglomerate Weyland-Yutani from Alien into Predator Badlands in clever and effective fashion. I mean, James Cameron elevated the Alien franchise with his 1986 sequel, Aliens, and Trachtenberg has done the same with Predator. In Badlands, we learn a lot more about the Yautja, the predator species in society, turning them from simple one-note hunting and killing machines into more nuanced beings with a hierarchy and personal honor, expanding them way beyond the villainy of their appearance in the first film of the franchise, 1987's Predator, you know, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Trachtenberg has been a major contributor to this richer exploration, having been the main creative force behind the last three Predator movies, the live-action prequel Prey, which is set in the past and pits a young Native American woman against a predator. Really great film. The animated anthology Predator Killer of Killers, and now Badlands. And honestly, I think Prey and Badlands are the best of the series since that first one. So computer animation has evolved to such an extent that there is absolutely no problem suspending disbelief in the incredibly otherworldly and treacherous flora and fauna that a disgraced Yautja named Dek, played by newcomer Demetrius Schuster Kolatangi, encounters on what is touted as the deadliest planet in the galaxy. And this is a place that even Dek's fellow predators fear. So he's there on a quest to kill the most fearsome beast on that planet and regain his status in his clan after his father, a chieftain, murders Dek's brother and banishes Dek. As it happens, and here's where we get the alien element, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is very interested in the biology of the planet and is acquiring samples of its native creatures for, you know, sinister research and development. But they seem to have learned their lesson from all the humans who have died trying to capture the xenomorph in the Alien movies, so their expedition is populated by androids. And the first synthetic we meet is Thea, played by Elle Fanning, and Thea has been damaged, having lost her legs. This leads to an alliance of convenience with Dek against the twin threats of the planet's ecosystem and Weyland-Yutani's shock troops. So will Dek succeed against these stacked odds? Will he get his trophy, make things right back home? Will Thea regain her limbs and transcend her programming to help Dek? And these questions and more are at the heart of Predator Badlands. And I got to tell you, even with its B-movie roots, it gets an A+. I mean, this is how you make a blockbuster. And Fanning, by the way, is wonderful, droll, and witty. Predator Badlands is in theaters wide this weekend. So, shall we move on?
Well, let me just say that Dan Trachtenberg is a friend of mine, and I'm a huge Predator fan from the very first one in 1987. To hear you say that it's the best of the series just warms my heart. I cannot wait to see it. Thank you, Michael Snyder. Please continue.
Well, he knows what he's doing. He's immersed himself in it, and he has made the series better with all of his contributions, Mo. Give him my regards. He's got a fan right here. Okay, Die My Love, directed and co-written by Scotland's Lynn Ramsey, who made the brutally gritty dramas Ratcatcher and We Need to Talk About Kevin, offers a scathingly good performance by Jennifer Lawrence as young mother Grace, who is stuck home alone and going nuts with a newborn after she and her husband relocate to the middle American boonies from the city. So from the get-go, they seem to have had a tumultuous relationship, but the baby and solitude exacerbate her situation. Though given less to do than Lawrence, Robert Pattinson aids and abets her with one of those fierce when needed portrayals, playing the woman's frustrated and affectless husband, Jackson. There's also notable supporting work from Nick Nolte and Sissy Spacek. Talk about talent. They played the baby's grandfather and grandmother. He's struggling with dementia. It's a little heartbreaking. And she's trying to assist Grace with the baby, but encountering resistance from the unhinged new mom. You know, it may not be Ramsey's best, but it is wrenching on many levels, and it digs deep into the psychological morass of one woman's madness. You know, it skitters through time occasionally, presumably reflecting Grace's increasing loss of sanity, and that's where it loses some clarity and thrust. But that's kind of a minor quibble with such a powerhouse turn by Lawrence. You know, it's what I call difficult viewing. Still, it is very rewarding if you can handle it. Die My Love is in theaters.
Jennifer Lawrence, I never thought of her as a great actress, but from the way you describe her performance and what I've read about her chemistry with Robert Pattinson may change what I think about her as an actress, it seems.
I tend to agree with you. Sometimes she seems to be phoning it in, or maybe it's her choices, but this one is potent, to say the least. And continuing along those lines, like Lawrence in Die My Love, Sydney Sweeney, yes, that Sydney Sweeney, seems likely to garner her share of awards season love for what is the most daring and impressive work of her career so far. She is unrecognizable, but deeply real in the role of woman's trailblazing boxer and boxing champion Christy Martin in what is a riveting biopic entitled Christy. So the physical transformation alone, compounded, by the fresh-faced blonde sex symbol putting on extra poundage and muscle, and enhanced by dark contact lenses and a series of wigs, is stunning. But it's her rich characterization of the closeted gay West Virginia girl of little means who discovers a life path and unexpected success as a pugilist that seals the deal. Like Lawrence has Pattinson to counter her in Die My Love, Sweeney has the always able Ben Foster, who is also unrecognizable here. And he's by her side through it all as Christie's predatory manager and trainer and eventually abusive husband. Now, Christie breaks no truly new ground as a dramatic rags to riches to crisis boxing movie biography. How can it escape the shadow of Raging Bull, which was about the legendary middleweight champ Jake LaMotta, or fictional flicks like the Rocky films and the Hilary Swank Clint Eastwood drama about a female boxer, $1 Million Baby? If Christie does smack of formula, it remains a worthwhile look at this woman's remarkable life in the sport and her perilous private life, and it's made even more noteworthy by what Sweeney and Foster bring to the screen, especially Sweeney. It's directed and co-written by David Michaud. Christie is enhanced by a supporting cast that includes Merritt Weaver as Christie's judgmental mother, not a nice woman, and Chad L. Coleman as larger-than-life and larger-than-large boxing promoter Don King. Okay. Again, this is somewhat by the numbers. Nonetheless, the truth of Christie's struggles in and out of the ring and the weight of her public and personal triumphs win out in the end. Christie is in theaters.
I'll probably be the hardest on that movie when I see it because I worked as a producer for Jim Rome, sports analyst and broadcaster, and we had interviewed Christy Martin many times during the height of her career, so I know her story front and back. So it'll be interesting to see whether the biopic is in alignment with some of those high notes and low notes of her career.
I would love to hear your take on these films once you get a chance to watch them. I so love that you know Trachtenberg, dude. I can't even begin to tell you. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, thank you, audience. Dan Trachtenberg. You may know the story of the Nuremberg trials from the history books, or if you're part of the post-literate crowd, the History Channel, or if you're a movie hound, you might have seen Judgment at Nuremberg, which was the award-winning 1961 dramatization of the post-World War II legal action against the Nazi regime. But none of that should keep you from checking out the new historical docudrama Nuremberg if this interests you. It is the latest necessary reminder of the horrors that the fascist leaders of Nazi Germany visited upon the victims of the Holocaust in World War II. The Nuremberg trials are investigated in some detail here with a specific focus on the case against Nazi High Command Officer Hermann Goering, Supreme Commander of the Luftwaffe, that's their Air Force, and the second most powerful man in the Third Reich after you-know-who. And he is portrayed here in a memorable, complex, and unsettling feat of character acting by Russell Crowe, as the war criminal plays a game of cat and mouse with a U.S. Army psychiatrist, played by Oscar winner Rami Malek, and an American attorney, played by the incredibly talented Michael Shannon, prepares the prosecution. This character prepares the prosecutions. So anyway, despite the 5-star performances by all the principals, Nuremberg occasionally feels a little dry in the exposition, but then it hauls off and throttles you with its depiction of evil incarnate, the shades of gray that muddle the fog of war, and the sacrifices made to deliver justice. James Vanderbilt wrote and directed Nuremberg, and he should be really proud of what he's achieved. It's part of a story that apparently needs to be told and told again, so it's not forgotten or diminished by time. Also, good supporting work by John Slattery, Richard E. Grant, and Colin Hanks. Nuremberg is in theaters.
That's one hell of a cast. I don't know if you can go wrong with the cast of that caliber, but something that you said, Michael Snyder, which gives me pause. It's unfortunate that we live in a day where history has been so bastardized that we have to look to our entertainment choices to help fill in those gaps.
It's awful. Mis and disinformation have basically created rack and ruin here. I don't even know what to say other than moving on to the next movie, Sentimental Value, which justifiably won the Palme d'Or at this year's Cannes Film Festival. I think it was the Best Picture winner. I wasn't there. I should have been there, but I wasn't. Anyway, it's the latest movie from Norwegian director and screenwriter Joachim Trier. Again, Sentimental Value is a family drama that also addresses the power and burden of being a high-profile creator in the performing arts. In the movie, two sisters in Norway, actress Nora and housewife Agnes, have to deal with the fraught relationship they've had with their father, Gustav Borg, who is a renowned filmmaker, re-entering their lives as he prepares to shoot a movie about the suicide of his late wife, the mother of his daughters. So he tries to convince Nora, an acclaimed member of Norway's National Theatre, to essentially play her mother in the movie, and Nora blanches. When he is greeted by her refusal, Gustav turns to a rising young American actress, Rachel Kemp, to take on the role. Stellan Skarsgård, the patriarch of the Skarsgård acting family, Alexander, Bill, those guys. He's his usual brilliant self as the self-absorbed but tormented Gustav, whose own mother dealt with the tragedy of her own. Norway's Renate Reinsve, who is Trier's 2021 lead in the romantic dramedy The Worst Person in the World. She is spectacular and complex as Nora. Inga Ibstadar Lilias is solid as Agnes. And guess who plays the American actress Rachel? I am not saying that it's Elle Fanning week, but Rachel is played with great sensitivity by a Predator's best synthetic pal, the versatile Liz Fanning. I was like, wow, it's like poles apart, Mo, poles apart. Sentimental Value is an emotionally affecting, thoughtful movie for grown-ups that deserves every accolade and will be in the discussion as one of the year's best films. It is in select theaters.
Now, you're making it real difficult for me to not watch any of these movies. These are some fantastic, thorough reviews, and I'm all in. Keep going, please.
I got to say, honestly, man, this is a rarity, a week when every movie has, some value to it. And here we go with an outlier, okay? Peter Hujar's Day is a little movie, but a masterful one for writer-director Ira Sachs, who did Passages, Love is Strange, and Little Men. And this benefits greatly from the presence of two superb actors, Ben Whishaw and Rebecca Hall, in the only two roles that this recreation of an actual 1974 conversation requires. And that would be gay New York City photographer Peter Hujar and his friend, writer Linda Rosencrantz, who wrote a book about their day-long chat entitled Peter Hujar's Day. So this is a downtown art scene cousin to the intimate conversational feat that was My Dinner with Andre, with theater and film stalwarts Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory speaking to one another in a chic Midtown Manhattan restaurant. Instead, they're in Rosencrantz's apartment, and over the pointed but brief and engaging hour and a quarter course of Peter Hujar's Day, Hujar and Rosencrantz are just hanging out, and Hujar is recounting what is probably a typical day in the local scene for him, interacting with the iconic likes of Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, Susan Sontag. I'll just say that if ever there was a totally cool opportunity to eavesdrop, it's Peter Hujar's Day. It's in select theaters. I think it's going to play very well on home video too. Again, it's very intimate. You know what I mean?
Give us one more before we're done.
I'll make it quick. Short, sweet, and lovely, Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, captures the joyful discovery and painful lessons of childhood. It's a gorgeous piece of animation, the work of French animators who are developing quite a rep for their magnificent work, like the movie Mars Express, which is sort of an animated futuristic film noir, and TV shows as diverse as Scavenger's Reign, which is sci-fi, Arcane, which is basically based on a video game and sort of supernatural, and the unbelievable Splinter Cell Death Watch, new to Netflix, which is essentially an espionage show. There is a kind of a Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli vibe to Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, which portrays a little girl's innocence and wonder, and is further enhanced by the Japanese setting in kind of pre-digital Japan, which is still dealing with the aftermath of World War II. It's based on an autobiographical novel by the writer who, I guess, experienced this, and that would be Amelie Nothomb. And it's colorful and has some simple, delicate designs, and it echoes anime, but it just has its own unique look. It is in select theaters, and I think this is a great family film. It's just a work of beauty. Little Amelie, or the character of Rain. I can't believe, Mo, no terrible films this week. There's usually something I can kind of dump all over, and that isn't the case.
Well, there's always hope for next week. There's something that you'll defecate on.
Yeah, I'm going to attack. I will bear the fangs when given a chance. But in the meantime, I think Mark is still going to be off next week. So you and I will reconvene, and you can tell us what you thought of some of these films if you get a chance to catch up to them. In the meanwhile, my total focus, Mo, is Niners Rams coming up this Sunday live from Santa Clara and Levi Stadium. Go Niners. And man, a pleasure to interact with you on the air, buddy.
Michael, we were doing so well, and then you had to bring up the 49ers. You don't know that I'm a lifelong Rams fan from 1976 when my father took me to see the Los Angeles Rams defeat the then franchise expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They won 34-0. I've been a Rams fan ever since then. I can't in good conscience root for the 49ers.
Oh, my God. Well, no, we shall remain frenemies on the sports front, okay?
Before we go, I need to recap very quickly your selections. Predator Badlands is the best of the series. You gave it an A+. Die My Love, you said it was great Jennifer Lawrence performance. That impressed me. It gives me something to remember. You talked about Christie, which you thought was the most impressive work of Sydney Sweeney's career. Wow, that is high praise. Nuremberg, hell of a cast, but dry at moments. Okay, I'll take that. Sentimental value, emotionally effective, but spectacular performances. And Peter Hujar's Day, my characterization, a little movie, but a big message. Definitely want to check that out. And Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, colorful, but unique visually, a great family film. So all I can say is I was listening intently. I was taking copious notes. I want to be in the theater, and I'll have a report next week.
All right, man. A pleasure. We'll see you then.
Michael Snyder, have a great day. There we go.
Fare thee well.
And before we go, I have to shout out some folks who were really, really supportive of this show, and also me. Dan Hartford, $5. Thank you so much, Dan. Ricky O'Bear 1. Hit the thumbs up button and then subscribe. Thank you. Richard Delamater. $2. Mo, don't sugarcoat. Was I sugarcoating?
No, you weren't doing it. You told it like it was all the whole time.
Luis says, talking about Donald Trump, Mo, he's Marie Antoinette or Marie Trumpionette, literally letting people starve to death while he blows millions of dollars to build his Versace Palace, DC, to hold parties. Well, Luis, you're not wrong. Definitely not wrong. And also, Luis, another $5. Ironic and disgusting to have a draft dodger at NFL game celebrating Veterans Day, but no troops serving or flyovers because of government shutdown. Hashtag shameful. Again, not wrong at all. And we thank you for supporting the Mark Thompson Show. It can't be done without you. It can't be done without the contributions of Kim McAllister. Kim, thank you for helping me on this day and throughout the past 2 days. We're going to do it all next week.
Yay! Woohoo! Next week, Gary Dietrich joins us to talk politics on Monday.
And Albert, thank you as well. Albert's just going to give me the silence chant. He just said.
Thank you.